right, so we'll do now the this is the 21st Mamer in the Mamer of Bamidbar and Likutei Torah. Almost done. One more Mamer, 21 and 22. So next Mamer is the last one. But these are Shavuos Dike Mamorim. And this is the explanation of the previous Mamer that we learned of the Pasuk. Oh, maybe it's the last Mamer? I think there's another one. Let me just see. I have a second one. I have one after this. Yeah. That's the way according to the heading. Okay, but let's go. Let's get it.
Any breaks, just after starts, after square parentheses.
But that's the way it's in the Maftech.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, no, not a problem.
In the book, they didn't print it like that.
Take a look in the index of the book. You'll see. In the index, okay, not a problem.
I'm sorry, it's very small.
Letter, yeah. Okay. That's the way they have it over here.
Sorry.
Okay, not a problem. So this is a biur al posik ואהיה אצלו אמון. Posik on the Etzlo. Aleph. Hine. Sfiras ha'omer, inyan sfiras ha'omer. The idea of sfiras ha'omer, ubchinas moichin di yenika. Sfiras ha'omer is the time in which there is, the Jewish people were born when they came out of Mitzrayim, they became like a new people. So the first days is called during Shvira, and then Shvira Shel Pesach, they were actually split the sea that he explained before, Gilu HaHelem, and from there until Shavuos, it was like a baby that you're nursing. The Yidden were in the level of nursing a baby. So that's called, they got the Moichin the Yenuka, child, the lower level of Moichin, until they came to Matan Torah, in which they got the bigger revelation. So saying that time is during the time of preparation for Matan Torah, that's the time in which the Gevuris become sweetened. Gevuris represent the midos of the Nefesh HaBahamis, which are very strong. And they need to be sweetened. Sweetened means they need to be directed in the right way. They become really good because they're strong, those midas, but their midas have to be channeled in the right emotions, character traits have to be channeled in the right direction. They have to be sweetened. And that was the preparation for Matan Torah. Let's look inside. And that's the level of sweetening of the gevuras. It happens, how do the gevuras above in Atzilus, how do they get sweetened? They get sweetened through a person below sweetening the gevuras over here. What does it mean? How do we sweeten over here? That's the level of iskafya v'ishapcha. When you subdue the inclinations, the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh HaBahamis, that level sweetens the Gevuras. Why? Because the Klippas themselves are rooted in Gevuras. So we have the Chasadim Gevuras, Chesed Gevuras, they're rooted in Gevuras. So therefore the level, and when we subdue the Sitra Achra and we turn from darkness to light, that is sweetening the Gevuras. So when you subdue the Sitra Achra and you turn it around, that means you're sweetening the Gevuras because the Sitra Achra is from Gevura. What does it have to do with the Yidden over here? So he said there's a very direct connection. When we sweeten the midos, the iskafya sitra achra over here, subdue our inclination, then we cause a sweetening of the gevuras above. Why? Because we're like a string. If you pull one edge of the string, it goes up on the other side of the string. So when we pull on this side, and we do iskafya sitra achra, we're sweetening the gevuras. Then up in the string above, it does the same thing. The Pasuk says, that Yaakov is like a string of an inheritance, like for example, a string, a rope. One part, one edge is tied above. And the end is below. That when you pull the string below, then it brings down so above. Just like through the sweetening of the gevuras by the person that he's miskafia the sitra achra, so he also rises above that these gevuras should be sweetened. What is the meaning and the idea of the misuk? Sweetening means that the gevuras themselves become sweet. You're not bringing in something else. You're not substituting. You're saying, okay, we're not going to use. Sweetening means if you have something bitter and you sweeten it, you still have that same idea. You have that same food. When you put in sugar or you sweetened it, so that means we're not doing away with the nefesh habahamis. We're not doing away. But we're sweetening it means we're bringing in, we're keeping the nefesh habahamis. We're bringing in kedusha and subduing it so that it turns itself around and it becomes in the service of Hashem. That the gevuras themselves become sweet. Say, for example, when you sweeten a bitter food or a sour food, so even though it's sour, but it's still a food, but it's sour. So now we're sweetening it. Once you sweeten it, it becomes a mixture, and it brings the soul back. It's a pleasantness for the soul. When we talk about sweetening the gevuras, they themselves become sweet. So then these gevuras themselves becomes greater and more praiseworthy. They're better. This is the idea of the Mochin Dinika that we say that takes place during Shuras Omer is Kimoshel Dam Nekar V'Nasa Cholam. How does the milk of the mother produce? It's because the blood becomes nekar, it becomes protrude, sour, and it turns into milk. Nasa Cholam. Dam, you can't eat dam, right? Dam represents gevuras. Cholov is white, right? It's sweet. So you mean you're sweetening, that's the idea of Yunika, you're sweetening. Dam neknas cholosh, hadam asmi shubichinas gevuras, that the dam itself, red, represents the level of gevuras. Nepach l'cholov chiverto, that turns into white milk. Chasodim chol. This is the counting of the Sfiras HaOmer. Until Shavuos. Why is it 44 days? Because we don't count, because the Leda really started from Shvi Shal Pesach. So you have to start after Shvi Shal Pesach. Shvi Shal Pesach will lead us on the Shama. After the birth, then is the level of Yenika, which is increase of the Midas. And this is like the Pasuk says, which is talks about the Omer. Bring the Pasuk says, you raise the Omer chulu l'rtzoincha, that it should be to your will, which basically with the Omer is the Michael Soirim. That's the Behema. That's the level of the Midas from Nefesh HaBahamis. And we turn them to become to a rotzen. What is the main intent? To turn the desires and the emotions of the animal soul, they should turn to Hashem. Then they're even more praiseworthy. They're on a greater level even than the neshamas of the nefesh, than the midris of nefesh lekis. And Razal, and this the Razal said, Tov the Yetzer Tov. Says the Ebsh said we need Tov Ma'od. Tov the Yetzer Tov, but Ma'od the Yetzer Hara. What does it mean? The Yetzer Hara is very good. Very good means once you swap it around and you turn it around, the middos, then it becomes even better than the Yetzer Tov. Vayin bezoyer parshas Yisrei daf samaches amud beis u'pirish haramasha. Mitam ze gam ken Omer Razal. That's also the reason why our sages of blessed memory tell us the mokem shabal tshuva im b'chulu. In the place where tzaddik shal tshuva is standing, the tzaddikim cannot even stand over there in that place. That means that the Baal Tshuva is greater than the tzaddik. Why? Because the Baal Tshuva swapped it around. It doesn't mean necessarily, the Alter Rebbe says, about Tshuva, because he did Avedis, that's when he stands on a higher madrega. About Tshuva means even if a person swaps himself around to be close to the Eibishter in a way of Tshuva, without Avedis, just the level of Tshuva, he gets to that higher madrega. So we would say, B'noida, that Tshuva doesn't mean specifically on sin. A person always has to be Tshuva. Kol Yom of B'Tshuva, he has to be all days in Tshuva, which means this Karev LaHashem, B'chinas Panim B'Panim, to get close to Hashem Panim B'Panim. How do you get close to Hashem Panim B'Panim? That is, by turning around the will, the desire, and the emotions from the level of yesh, of the level of desiring of Elam Hazeh, to desire the Eibishter. But what's the reason? So how come Take, the Nefesh HaBahamis, when you sweeten him, is greater than the Nefesh HaLekis itself, the Midas of that? Why is that? So we're going to explain, because Be'etzem, the Nefesh HaBahamis, is more forceful than the Nefesh HaLekis, because it comes from the level of Gevura. But the problem is that there could be a unique going in the wrong direction. But when you take the Nefesh HaBahamis with its force and you turn it to Kedusha, you get a bigger force. Why is it that through the sorting out of the Nefesh HaBahamis, it's called Tov Me'od, that it's very good? Is hu mishum shamid sheben nefesh habahamis mitzad etzem mitziusom hem tikifim v'chazokim yoser b'midah sheben nefesh halikis, that in of themselves the nefesh habahamis, the midos, are stronger with more force than the midah nefesh halikis. Ki yisre nagvura b'beheima mibod, just like the strength of an animal which is stronger than a human. Eloshi behema. The problem is it's a behema. So it's not as strong, but it's a behema. But when you include the behema in the level of Odom, then his power is very strong. This is now in the root. Before we're talking about a behema over here is stronger than a human, but also in the root, Kishorsham is mebchinas pnei aryeh, pnei shoir. The Nefesh HaBahamis, koyach comes from the aryeh and the shoir. Sha'avosom v'yirosom gedoylo li'ein shir. Their love and fear is greater without any measure. That shin ayin elef arivoso suchorono. 370,000. Arivoso means lions. Arivoso. Sukharna, the high arna. Not sure exactly. We'll take a look on the Zohar. But it says, Kadgoi high arye, when this lion roars, all the skies, they tremble from the great. That means that represents that immense power and love of Ava that is expressed by this Aryeh. Why is that? It says, the reason all will be obvious. Because also in the word of tikkun itself, if you look in Atzilus, which is the Olam HaTikun, so over there, the root of Midas is higher than Seichel. Even though the order is Chochma Bina Das, and then comes the Midas Chesed Gvura, etc. But the truth is that the source and the root of the Midas is even higher from the Seichel. Because when you go up to Keser, higher than Atzilus, so we say like this, Ki avo b'maslo Talia. Avaim, which is Chochma Bina, they are hinged on the level of Mazel. That's the level of Sidus. Avol Zoh, but Zeir Ampin, which is the Midas, Ba'atika Achid V'Talia. Over there it's united in Atik, and it hinges on Atik. Actually, it's Yosef, he's Galusei. So how come in Atzilus the Midas are below Chochma Bina? Because the way the Midas come out, they come out through Bina. They're revelation. They come from a higher place, but they are revealed. They exit and they revealed Adei Bina. Commercial, take for example, Ben Zohar, a boy. So the Zohar considered to be a higher level, but the Zohar comes from the Nukva, comes from the mother. Even though he grows in the womb of the mother and is born from there, and yet because he's the level of a Zohar, and it's taken prior to them, so it doesn't matter. Sometimes you even have this son being on a better, more power, better, beautiful than the power of the father. That means that even though it comes from the father, but it can have a higher root than the father. That's why he's Yofa. So basically what we're saying, that even though that the Midas come through Bina, but it doesn't mean that they're really low from Bina. They come from a higher source and they go through Bina. This is even when we talk about the Midas of Zoh in Tikkun and Atzilus. And certainly when we talk the Midas of Olam HaToyu, Hashem is barring that when they are sorted out, Mashvira, they have a very strong power. And this is the idea of sweetening the Gevuras. And this is the meaning to make it your will to turn around, that they become yours. How does this all happen? So who is the one that sweetens them? What sweetens the Gevuras? What sweetens the Midos? What sweetens the Nefesh HaBahamis? But that comes through the Chesed. What is it's going to tell you now the 5 Chesodim we learn a lot of times about the 5 Chesodim had earlier, but the Alter Rebbe here is going to tell you what the 5 Chesodim are. Because technically you have 7 Midas. Each Midah has in itself the level of Chesed. The level of Chesed, which is in each Midah, is really the sweetening of that Midah. So you have the Midah Chesed Shebe Chesed, Chesed Shebe Gvura, Chesed. What's the sweetening of that Midah is that level of Chesed which is in that Midah. So why is there only 5? So there's 7 Midas. But the 2 Midas of Yesod and Malchus, they're considered to be general. They're not part of this. It's going to say over here, hey, Chasodim, these 5 Chasodim that sweeten them, hey, Chesed Shebe Chesed, from Chesed Shebe Chesed, ad Chesed Shebe Hoy, till Chesed Shebe Hoy. So Chesed Shebe Chesed, Chesed Shebe Gvura, Chesed Shebe Tiferes, Chesed Shebe Netzach, and Chesed Shebe Hoy. We had 5. Ki HaChasodim, the Yesod of Malchus, because the Chesed that is in the level of Yesod and the level of Malchus, the other 2, the 7, Heimra Klolus Hey Chasodim, Uklolus the Klolus. They're just a general of the 5 Chasodim, and a general Kameshikosu Bepreis Kaim, Kavodas the Shaina Rabba. So those are not included more generally, more different. So these ve'ei chesodim elu, and these levels of these 5 chesodim, zeu hey yemei yomim d'sfiras ha'omer shelifnei shvi'i shel Pesach. Up till the 7th day of Pesach, you start counting from the day after Pesach, right? So you have 5 days, and then comes Shvi'i Shel Pesach, the day after, and then Shvi'i Shel Pesach is the 7th day. Those, and then the Yom Rishon the Pesach. What's the measure? Ubchinas moichin da'avo mokar amidus. So that on the first day of Pesach, that's the moichin of avo. That's the aveim. That's chokhmah bina, which is the source of it. That's why on the first day we conclude the Hallel, because that's Chochmah Bina, that's the shows on the level of greatness. Mashmeiken Yom Beis the Pesach, but starting from the 2nd day of Pesach, Maschil Sfiras Ha'omer B'Kinas HaMidas, then we start with Sfiras Ha'omer, which is the level of Midas. L'chein Be'eretz Yisrael, then give us Hallel B'Yom Beis. In Eretz Yisrael, you don't. It's only one day Yom Tov. So on the 2nd day, we don't say full Hallel. I mean, in Golos we say Yom Sheresh Golius. But the bottom line is really Hallel is only the first day. Why? Because that's the real Moichin Da'avo. Hine b'Shvi'i Shel Pesach u'b'chinas leidas haneshama bebriya. So in Shvi'i Shel Pesach, the neshama is born into Bria. Asher sham yesh yignikas ha'chitzoni. Over there is already a nurturing from the chitzoni. Once we come to the level of Bria. Okay, that's why we need to sweeten the gevuras. Idea is copy of his hapcha through subduing and turning around. That the person refines his midas. And that's what we start Sfiras Ha'omer. The next 44 days. The 5 days before Shvi'i Shel Pesach, that's in the level of Atzilus. Sheshom Ksiv Lo Yigur Chara. In Atzilus, so basically, before Shvi'i Shel Pesach, you're in Atzilus. On Pesach, it's Chochmah Atzilus. Before Shvi'i Shel Pesach, the neshama has not come out yet. On Shvi'i Shel Pesach, it comes out, it's birth, and then we come into Bria. And in Bria, we have challenges, and therefore we have the Sfiras Ha'omer to turn our things around. In Atzilus, there is no need for the Birur Hamidah because Shom Ksiv Lo Yigur Chara. Over there, there's no bad over there. And those 5 days are the 5 kindness that sweeten the gevuras, so that later on, when you go out into the world, you'll have the chesodim to sweeten the gevuras. In the Sfiras Ha'omer, so the Sfiras Ha'omer, counting that is the moichin of the yinika, as we started off. Similar to the milk that makes the limbs of the baby grow, the milk, the nursing for the mother. Also the midas, they are worn as small as they were in Toyu, b'chinas nekudas. They were just like points. Through the milk, the time of the nursing of the Sfiras Ha'omer becomes the increase of midas. Shiva midas nasim shiva shavuos. So from the 7 midas, instead of being 7, we make them to 7 weeks. Each midah gets a whole week. That means they increase. You made the midah big. Instead of being on the kuda, it's 7. Each midah is 7. There's a whole week. It's 7 days. So Shiva midah nasim shiva shavuos. Because each one is included of 7. Now for each midah we have 7 days. That's the increase that the midah gets. This makes it a wide receptacle, a wide keli, to receive the Torah of Shavuos, to get to the level Vaaya Etzlo Amon, talking about the Torah, that the Torah is level of Amon. The idea of the Shtei Halach. Okay, we'll leave it over here and then we'll continue.